I really never hear this topic discussed at all, which is, I guess, understandable, but unfortunate, because it is a reality of reselling that once you do it for long enough, at some point you're not going to want to do it. Today, I hit a wall, took a bunch of stuff over to the post office, big heaping IKEA bag full of packages that I was psyched on, and I went to a nearby Goodwill to source and just ran straight into a wall, flattened myself against it, and all of a sudden just did not give a shit, did not want to be there, did not want to be working. The sight of shirts made me ill and just wanted to go home. And this happens to me from time to time, and I'm sure it happens to you. And I want to offer a couple of pieces of advice, having hit that wall a number of times and not completely broken my skull in the process. The first piece of advice or piece of context to give you, or piece of permission, is that it is okay to hate reselling. It is okay to be sick of your job. And I feel like that is strangely taboo to say now, because we live in this hustle culture where people glorify work for the sake of work, and they attach all of this heavy-handed moralism to work. There's this injunction to want to work. You're meant to be an enthusiastic laborer. Feeling exhausted, feeling negative towards your obligation to work is seen as victim mentality or some such nonsense. And not to get too editorial here, but my perspective is work typically, for the most part, sucks. And reselling is great because it's a form of suck-ass work that sucks, that has a lot of moments of moments of enjoyment interspersed through it. The thrill of the hunt, of sourcing, the thrill of making the good sale, the pride that you feel in generating your own money for yourself without needing a boss. All of these tangential enjoyments that go along with it are, I think, kind of unique to it. And I'm sure there's other forms of work that have a similar kind of emotional gratification or satisfaction or whatever. But it's work. It's still work. And work sucks. And it's something that we have to do. It's not a choice that we have to not work. We're not really in charge of our own time. And again, not to get too editorial, but you live life with a sword hanging over your head in the form of financial obligation to generate income for yourself. And it's kind of a form of unfreedom, and it's fine that that fact of life brushes up against your soul and leaves a couple of marks from time to time. And if you're on this grind of working, 8-10 hour days or more doing reselling, day in and day out without any days off, then it's no surprise that you become sick of it. So let yourself be sick of it. And if you let yourself be sick of it, you'll get over it faster, which is my second piece of advice. Give it time, because emotional states come and go, physical states of energy or depletion come and go, and there's things obviously you can do, eating well, taking care of yourself. But just, see it as a transient emotional state, as every emotional state is transient, blah, blah, sit on top of a mountain, become the Buddha. But really, just give it some time. But keep sourcing, or keep working, or listing, or whatever it is. You do have to work through it. The sword is hanging over your neck, and you can't let it drop. So, I don't know. I was at the Goodwill today, and sometimes the environment is just not conducive to enthusiasm of any kind. They were playing all the hits. We had the tweaker dressed like Billy Idol, who was kind of scratching his neck and getting way too close to me. We had a fight between a guy who got mad at a woman's kid for allegedly swinging a belt at his dog, and then the husband came in and puffed his chest up, and there was a bunch of, bro, what you say? What you say, bro? A lot of that shit happening, and packs of teenage girls screeching, and just a whole lot of a bunch of stuff going on. And you just have to thrift through it. You just have to remember that you have a job to do and do it. And don't let your negative emotional state overwhelm your rational faculties in making sound sourcing decisions, because a lot of the time when you're in that frame of mind, you're not going to want to pull the trigger on stuff that you know intellectually you should. So it's good to have a set of mental rubrics for what is a good sourcing decision and what isn't. By this point, you know what mine are: high sell-through, being able to make at least, you know, some reasonable margin of profit and being able to make it quickly, or finding something that's longer tail that will have a big payoff if I decide to sit on it, or something that I can turn into a quick flip if I price it lower than market, which is what I've been doing lately. So I know that there is a kind of mental checklist of criteria that I can just run through dispassionately and say, logically, I know that this is going to make me money, so I'm going to buy it. But if you're staring down the barrel of the labor of listing the thing, if you're jumping ahead of yourself and you're just physically tired and depressed and depleted or whatever, you're not going to want to do it. But just make yourself do it. Make yourself source right. And keep sourcing also, because one good way to emerge out of the doldrums is to find something good, to have a good find, a good score, or a series of good scores. And that has a tendency to wipe the slate pretty clean. If you find something that's really spectacular, that's happened to me again and again. That's actually the most reliable way to snap yourself out of it, is you just find something cool. I found some cool stuff. It didn't work today, but typically it does work. Another trick that I've learned over the years is stop sourcing for your business and start sourcing for yourself, which is completely just trickery. It's a magic trick that you pull with yourself, because you're still looking at all the same stuff and you still are logically, you know, you're going to recognize good sourcing opportunities for your business when you see them. But for some reason, it's much less friction for me if I can just say, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to look for some new shirts for myself. And then, oh, lo and behold, some Mizzen & Mains, some Patagonias happen to fall into my cart. Sometimes also it's good to source from different areas of the thrift store, just to mix in some novelty, because a lot of the times where this comes from is just the monotony of looking at the same sections, of flipping through pants and shirts, and just wanting to drive off of a cliff because you've seen so many Faded Glory shirts again and again, thousands of times in your life. So just go look at the books, or go look at the houseware, something weird. Try something you haven't tried sourcing before. That's a good one. So if you've never sourced pots and pans, for example, try going through and doing the research, and that can kick in your learning faculties and engage you mentally. And that's one of the most fun parts of reselling. I miss the early days, like the year one learning process of reselling, where I would be up until 2 or 3 in the morning watching YouTube videos about specific reselling niches, because I was so mentally engaged and I was just intaking all of this new data and information and trying to find my bearings with stuff. And it's a great thing to do when you can do it. Like, if you find whatever, have you ever sourced golf balls? Have you ever sourced tennis rackets? Have you ever sourced scrapbooking supplies? Have you ever sourced rollerblades? Whatever you can find in the thrift store that's novel, that you've never considered before, try that. And it pays off. Like, I mostly do clothing, but I was bored with clothing, so I went and looked at pots and pans, and here's a good bolo for you. It's a new brand to me. Never ever seen it or heard of it before. And this is worth at least $75. If I price at $75, that's undercutting the market pretty significantly. These sell for $120 used. Just sitting there for $4. And so that kind of, kicked in my hunting instinct, and I was still pissed off and tired, but that bought me some time. I kept sourcing. And I wound up, I ended the session with a big bag full of stuff. Some of that's for me, but most of it is, you know, decent, good, quick flip inventory that's gonna make me money. So in terms of listing, which is the real son of a bitch, the thing that people really don't want to do, or, you know, most people, including me, the only thing that I've ever found that can motivate you to keep doing it even when you don't want to is, well, two things. One is you have to have built up a level of macro momentum of listing consistently over a long period of time so that it doesn't feel like you're just starting to push the boulder up the mountain for the first time. Which, if you give yourself 2 or 3 days off, or certainly more, of listing, it's like trying to start a lawnmower cold. It's so much more difficult to put yourself in a position of working, and you're not in the flow, you're slower, you're more easily distracted. But since I've been listing a lot consistently daily for a couple weeks minimum at this point, after I got settled in after the move, it's so easy. I actually, weirdly enough, kind of want to do it because I'm just in the habit of doing it. And also because it's working, which is piece of advice number 2 to motivate yourself to list even when you're in a bad mood, is you have to be getting results. And this on this channel is the deadest of dead horses, but I love quick flipping. I will take the lower margin of return for a faster sale, to be making multiple sales a day without having to have a giant 10,000 unit inventory, because it's fun. It's so much more fun for all the reasons I've talked about. And it's profitable, and it's just gratifying, and it makes listing easier because I know that a lot of the stuff that I do photograph and list is gonna sell within a 48, sometimes 24-hour window. Not all of it, not even most of it. I would say maybe a third of the stuff that I list will flip seemingly in a magic amount of time, because it's really in-demand stuff and I priced it at the bottom of the market. It's an easy presentation, it's an easy decision for the buyer to make, and I am able to move a lot of stuff out very quickly. So it ceases to become just a mechanical exercise in tedious data entry, which is what listing otherwise feels like to me. It feels like the worst part of any other job that you could really have that involves, you know, being a desk jockey, which is most of the jobs that I've, not all the jobs, but a lot of the jobs that I've had. It feels like work. But if I'm getting the hit, if I'm getting the dopamine spike of making the consistent sales and seeing the fruits of my labor in short order, then I'm motivated to list. And those two things in conjunction make listing not quite as painful. Like, all I want to do is go sit at the coffee shop around the corner and read a book and drink some coffee and take a nap. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to list because I have this stuff. I know that someone on the internet wants it and is going to pay me to do this, and I'm not going to have to wait a month to see something happen. So you don't have to do, you know, blah, 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 blah. I've said this a million times. There are many reselling business models. You don't have to be a quick flipper. This is one of the benefits that I've found. If you're not a quick flipper, I would say do not let off the gas. Do not let yourself take long hiatuses from listing unless there's intervening life circumstances that make it impossible to list every day. I have a feeling the thumbs downs are coming because this is me being negative. Yeah, I'm being negative because life is occasionally negative, and it's good to just be able to rationally assess this part of the experience of reselling instead of trying to contort yourself into some kind of weird, unnatural psychic posture of mentally reframing yourself into loving the grind and the hustle all the time. And I think if you're imbibing a lot of that content, a lot of the Gary Vaynerchuk shit, a lot of the hashtags and the eternal grind, no complaints, no whining, hustle all the time, work all the time, never complain, never say anything critical, never say anything negative. I think that's poison, and I think that that's bad for you as a reseller, and I think it's bad for you as a person. That's my little op-ed. Of course, many will disagree. Just sit with it and be reasonable and do what you can and wait for it to pass, because it will, and move on. Carry on and keep working because you have to. You don't have a choice. So just do it.